breaking news into the Fanfare newsfeed.
No, I have fake Tapper as they said, I just want to debate this guy, but, and I'm going to demand a drug test, too, by the way. I am. No, I really am. I don't want him coming in like the State of the Union. He was high as a kite. I said, is that Joe up there? A beautiful row? And by the end of the evening, he's like, well, he was exhausted, right? Now, we're going to demand a drug test. But fake Tapper and these people, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fair. I think they're going to be fair. And if they're not, you have to deal with it, right?
Why would Trump demand that Dementia Joe has to take a drug test before the debate? I can't even imagine why he'd want to have a drug test.
That's why my administration is taking the most significant action, notwithstanding the Supreme Court tried to stop me, to provide student debt relief, most supreme ever. We raised $400 billion over the next 10 years.
Oh yeah, that's why. In a speech last night, Trump dropped an absolute truth bomb. He said that he will demand a drug test as a condition for doing the debates. And he's absolutely right. I'm not sure how many of you have worked in corporate America, but for just about every job in corporate America that's at an executive level, you have to take a drug test. You have to get drug tested to be a police officer. You have to get drug tested to be a firefighter. You have to get drug tested to be a pilot. And that's because your employer wants to make sure that you're not on anything. So if tons of jobs across the country require a clean drug test, why is it that we, the employer of the President of the United States, can't demand a drug test for a presidential candidate? Let me say that again. We are the employer of the President of the United States. So we have every right to demand a drug test. I want to know that the person we hire, the person we elect to be President of the United States, isn't under the influence of narcotics. Don't you think that's appropriate? I think it's appropriate. I think it's more than appropriate. I think it should be mandatory. School bus drivers get tested for drugs. They carry precious cargo. The President of the United States, who we employ, has the power to fire nuclear weapons. So you're damn right, the president should be drug tested. It should be disqualifying, even as a candidate, if you test positive for certain drugs. Especially as the special counsel concluded that there are two issues with Dementia Joe. He wrote that Joe is either lying or incompetent, or he's cognitively impaired, so much so that he couldn't stand trial. And now the White House has decided to bury the interview tape. Biden is declaring executive privilege to prevent that tape being disclosed to the American public. And they are doing everything they possibly can to cover it up.
President Biden decided to block the release of the audio of his interview with the special counsel. And obviously the letter from the White House counsel laid out the reasons about the concerns of being used for political purposes. But that seems...
So he's declaring executive privilege because he doesn't want that tape to be used for political purposes. He's fighting to keep his executive privilege. Meanwhile, they completely destroyed Trump's executive privilege. Make any sense? Paying attention?
To imply that the White House is concerned that these could be politically damaging. So why not just release them, especially with this White House's commitment to transparency?
Well, for one, the transcripts, as you all know, is already out there. I think the second...
Hold on here. So the transcripts are already out there. You don't need to see Joe on tape. You don't need to see his demeanor. You don't need to hear any stuttering. We already edited that stuff out so you have the actual answers on the transcript. We don't know what was edited out. We don't know if they put the way he looked when he answered the questions. We don't have any of that. So they just want to put out words on a piece of paper. That should be enough. Don't worry about it.
Piece of this too to note is that the Attorney General made it clear that law enforcement files like these need to be protected.
The Attorney General? Merrick Garland? You mean the guy who just yesterday said he's above the law, doesn't need to disclose anything, doesn't need to report to a subpoena? That guy? That's the guy you're quoting as saying, hey, he told us it was okay to basically bury these reports.
And so the president made his determination at the request of the Attorney General. So just want to...
Oh, see? I don't know if anyone ever showed you that. Joe didn't make the decision. Merrick Garland told Joe, you better go ahead and use executive privilege and cover this entire thing up. But what about Trump's executive privilege? No, don't worry about that. We're going after that guy. We're going to take care of him. He doesn't get executive privilege. Only you, Dementia Joe.
Make that second point that I made really clear. The Department of Justice and the White House counsel's office have provided extensive written letters, as you all know. I'm sure some of you have read this on this issue. And like I said,
understand I'm making a video. If this was a radio show and I was just reading you the text of what I'm saying, you can't see my face, you can't see my demeanor, you can't see any punctuation that I may add, any affectations. All you see is the written word. We're not even getting a radio, or rather a taped audio. All we're getting is a transcript. We don't even get the audio, nothing but the words on a paper. And that should be enough for you stupid American people.
That you have seen. And so so when it comes to anything further or any specifics, obviously I would refer you to my colleagues at the White House counsel's office. But those are just to make that second point again very clear, this was taken by determination. The President took the determination at the request of the Attorney General, and the Attorney General wanted to make sure that that law enforcement files like these must be protected.
So wow, I didn't know that Merrick Garland was the president. I thought he worked for the president. I thought he served at the pleasure of the president. I didn't know he dictated and mandated to Dementia Joe what should and shouldn't happen. But obviously, KJP just said, yeah, Merrick Garland said, don't put these tapes out there. It could be damaging to you. Oh, okay, I'll use executive privilege. And so Joe blocked the release of those tapes. Isn't it amazing that Merrick Garland has shredded every bit of executive privilege that Donald Trump has exercised, but is going overboard to protect Dementia Joe? And now when we talk about the debate, Trump agreed to every single demand that the Biden campaign put out there. And some of those demands were absolutely nuts, but Trump agreed to them anyway.
And as for Biden's generous offer to participate in 2 debates, it came with a ton of conditions. None of them mentioned during his 13-second Dirty Harry Tough Guy routine. Let's be clear. Joe Biden and the media mob, they don't get to collude and dictate all the terms of the debates, but that won't stop Joe and the mob from trying. Now understand, even though Hannity said that, Trump said, no problem. I'll take your demands. Let's go ahead and do it, and I'll still do it with your demands in place. Well, Mr. Make My Day Joe is demanding no audience. Apparently, Joe gets easily scared and likely gets disoriented from crowd noise, which would be new to him since he never gets a large crowd at any of his events, his short events. Now, 2, Biden wants third-party candidates and independents banned from the stage, including...
And remember, these are all Biden's demands. None of these were Trump's.
RFK Jr. Well, as of now, in order to debate third-party candidates, they need to be polling at 15%, qualify in enough states to get the Electoral College votes that are needed, but that should be negotiable. 3, Joe wants mics to be muted after the allotted speaking time expires, so no back and forth. I guess it's just too confusing for Joe to keep track. Now, I would add that moderators' mics, they need to be muted also after a question. Why? Because it's obvious the liberal media, they'd love to be 2-on-1 versus Donald Trump. No, that can't happen. Nor should networks be allowed to put anything on the screen but the names of the candidates, because they might try to hurt Donald Trump that way and participate that way. No go. And while we're at it, there should be no notes, no teleprompters, Joe. In other words, Joe, you don't get giant cheat sheets telling you where to stand and how to say hello and how to say goodbye.
And in addition to no notes and no teleprompters, someone needs to make sure they screen both candidates to make sure there's nothing in their ear. No inner ear microphones or receptive devices like they would use with the CIA or any Secret Service. Make sure, scan him, make sure there's nothing in his ear so he can't get messages.
Meanwhile, Biden's 4th demand is that he's only willing to debate on only 4 liberal Biden-friendly news outlets. his choice, ABC, CBS, Telemundo, and fake news CNN. In response, well, Trump told Fox News this: I'm ready to go. The dates they proposed are fine, anywhere, anytime, any place. Let's see if Joe can make it to the stand-up podium. And Trump even agreed to hold the first debate on fake news CNN, a network filled with dishonest left-wing hacks we know who hate him. Now, this includes Dana Bash and fake Jake Tapper, who are now tasked, they say, with moderating the debate. Let me stop right here. I'm sorry, but the media mob and Joe Biden, I'll say it again, they don't get to collude and choose radical Biden-supporting hosts in the moderator's chair. Nice try, though.
But despite Hannity and many other people saying don't agree to this stuff, Trump agreed. He took Joe's demands and said, I will debate you man on man, toe to toe. You get to pick the venue. You get to pick the network. Won't have an audience. We're going to do it your way. We're going to mute the mics. Everything you asked for, we're going to do. But then last night, Trump dropped his only demand.
No, I have fake Tapper as they said, I just want to debate this guy, but, and I'm going to demand a drug test too, by the way. I am. No, I really am. I don't want him coming in like the State of the Union. He was high as a kite.
But now, the lib nuts are freaking out. Why? Because they know it will never happen. There is no possible way the White House, the Biden administration, will allow Joe to be drug tested. Ain't gonna happen. And what's funny is I think most of America knows that would never happen. So they are responding the only way that they can. And you know what that means. It's time to attack Trump. This woman on Twitter, she went kind of nuts with it. She goes, Trump will demand Biden take a drug test before the debate or Trump won't debate. So Trump has found a way to back out because he's afraid he will lose. Funny, you didn't say that about Biden's demands, but now all of a sudden Trump has a demand and he's afraid. He's being a coward. He's afraid he's going to lose. Why? You don't want a fair fight? Is that what you're saying? This person on X says, first, despite all the bluster from Trump, there's a very small chance he will debate Biden. Second, Trump saying he wants Biden to have a drug test before a debate is just a way to start a drug diversion since it's obvious Trump is the one that's doping. If Trump is the one that's doping, it'll be exposed. He didn't say just Joe. Let's both take a drug test. Why not? Why wouldn't you want both candidates that you are going to employ, that you are paying for? Why wouldn't you want them both to be drug tested? How could you possibly push back against this? And then another person says, nah, this is just Trump laying down roadblocks to get out of the debates. These people are insane. They can't even fathom that a drug test would be something that, would make sense given Joe's already bad condition. And if you think for any instant that, Trump has a bad condition, well, then you're going to find that out too. Why wouldn't you? Nobody is giving a reason why they wouldn't want this to happen. The gut reflex action was to just say, no, Trump's trying to get out of it. Your guy put up a page full of demands. A page full of demands after talking tough on a video. Trump gave one demand, just one. He accepted everything that Biden put out there and put out one demand, and you guys are freaking out. And I just love this one. Trump is so panicked about the presidential debate in June, he is already trying to delegitimize it. Despite Trump's dementia, he still gets the debate will not be good for him. Expect him to drop out over terms. So let me get this straight. Dementia Joe gets to put out all kinds of demands, all kinds of terms and conditions, decide where the venue is, decide which network it's going to be on, decide who's going to moderate it, and Trump asks for one demand and you people are all freaking out? You're kind of exposing yourself. You're kind of telling everybody, telegraphing a message that you don't think that Dementia Joe could stand on a debate stage without being juiced. There's no way that Dementia Joe can stand on that podium for 2 hours and have a reasonable conversation without a teleprompter. There's no way that Dementia Joe can survive on that podium without an earpiece or notes. And there's absolutely no way that Dementia Joe can debate Trump, stand up there for 2 hours without any assistance, without being jacked up.
I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew.
So at this point, it looks like the debates aren't going to happen. There's no possible way that Dementia Joe's team is going to allow him to take a drug test before the debate, and if he doesn't take the drug test, then Trump should just walk away. Trump gave him one demand. That's all you have to do is pee in a cup. That's it. That's all we need you to do, Joe. Tell America why you don't want to do that. And let me know what you think in the comments. Should a presidential candidate on either party be subject to a drug test for the top job, arguably, in the world? Let me know what you think. Talk to you soon.
That's why my administration is taking the most significant action, notwithstanding the Supreme Court tried to stop me, to provide student debt relief, most supreme ever. We raised $400 billion over the next 10 years.